I'm sure that, like me, you'll be glad you visited 100 Huntley Street today. A very familiar guest has made a very significant move. If you have British roots, you will be excited as I am. Dr. Andy Bannister, former Canadian director of Ravi Zacharias Ministries, is taking on Scotland. He has become the new director of the Solas Centre for Public Christianity. I'm still a little bit in shock. Andy, you're now a resident of Dundee, Scotland.
I am. I've returned to the motherland. Although the accent is very much English, not Scottish.
Yeah, very much. Oxford was home, right?
It was,
Before you came to us for 6 years. I guess you wanted to experience Brexit personally, and...
That's it. I felt with Brexit, my country needed me, and I felt with the Trump phenomena, maybe North America didn't.
You know, just looking at the stats again on last year in Scotland, just about split in half on bailing on the Commonwealth, on going independent. I just wonder what kind of climate you've jumped into.
Interesting. I think a couple of things are going on there. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of going on politically, but I think the whole the Scottish referendum, Brexit, and then of course we've now had the Trump results in America. I think there's a general trend in the culture. I think people are voting for the anti-establishment position. People are very cynical. There's a lack of trust. And I think in some ways that's a challenge. In the other ways, I think what an incredible opportunity for the gospel. Because I think more than ever, people are asking questions of who can I trust? How can I know what's true? You know, this post-truth idea that's floating around. What an opportunity for Christians to begin speaking into. Well, let me tell you about, the one who can be trusted, the one who is truth, the one who wasn't out for his own agenda, which is Jesus.
Yeah, I was busting to ask you about that, Oxford's new word in the dictionary.
Yeah.
Post-truth. A sad comment that should even be given place.
I think so, but I think also, I mean, here we are, in Christian media, but you look across the field of media in general, I mean, you can see it. I think, we've had decades now of spin, manipulation, so the internet, which people thought was going to bring us truth, I think, in some ways, because it would give us access to everything, has had precisely the opposite effect.
Fake news.
Well, you Google an answer to a question and you find 3 different opinions. How do you know? And I think of Pilate when he's confronted by Jesus, and Pilate says, "What is truth?" I think people are desperate for truth.
I can see you playing off that.
I think play off that. Look on that as an opportunity, Moira, not a threat.
Well, part of the reason I'm excited, my mother was born and raised in Scotland.
I figure with a name like Moira, you probably had to be from...
That's where I got it. But what you probably don't know is that I am a lady. Moira Louise Brown.
No, really?
Yes, Lady of Glencoe. There it is in writing.
Lady of
I do.
Okay, look at that.
Have a plot of land in the Highlands.
Really?
Big enough to maybe put a pup tent on. But
What's a start? It's a small castle, a wee castle. A wee castle.
Maybe big enough for one. But
okay, well, I didn't realise I was in the presence of the aristocracy, Moira. I would otherwise, if I had a forelock, I would tug it.
Thank you. But just a token of my desire to see Scotland's highest and best. So I'm just thrilled you're there. I'm actually thrilled at why you're here right now. And just wait. Before we catch up on what's still happening in Canada, Solas Centre for Public Christianity. It sounds so British.
It does, doesn't it? So that's right. So I'm now split my time. I do a third of my time for Ravi Zacharias International Ministries, who you know and love.
So you didn't really leave?
I didn't leave. I've still got a foot very much firmly in the door. But then 2/3 for this organisation called the Solas Centre for Public Christianity. So Solas is the Gaelic word, the Scottish word for sun. The idea of the sun rising. And also, if you know your church history, the great cry of the Reformers, and of course 2017, 500th anniversary of the Reformation, sola scriptura, only scripture, was the great cry of Luther and Calvin and those folks. So when my Scottish friends set this up 6 years ago, and Arzedeum helped launch this 6 years ago, they thought that was a clever name. And the public Christianity piece I love, because one of the challenges when you set up a ministry or an organisation concerned with communicating gospel truth in the public square is what do you name it? Do you call it something very, very Christian that Christians go, oh yeah, I know what that means, but our non-Christian friends go, huh? Or do you go the other way? And I think what I like about Solas Centre for Public Christianity, it's clever, it says what it does, and also there's something very important built in there. The gospel, Moira, is public truth. We live in an age that I think, along with post-truth and everything else, encourages Christians to privatise their faith. One of the biggest mistakes we've made is allowed that agenda to go forth. And our culture tells us, be a Christian, sure, but do it in private. When you go in the world of work or the academy or the public square, then leave that behind. And we can't do that because the gospel is public truth. And what I want to see is a world in which people can bring their Christian faith, or their Muslim faith, or their Hindu faith, or their secular faith into the public square. We can sit together around the table and talk about ideas. And the Christian faith stands up in that climate.
This is the man who spent, 11 years studying Islam. You're ready for anything. RFA.
Theoretically.
And apparently Europe is warmer than we might think. I mean, I'm just going to backtrack and say when I was in England, 70 miles from the Scottish border for a year in 81, 82, when we went into the boys' comprehensive schools, a little bit like prisons, I have to say, and did skits, they didn't have a clue who David and Goliath were.
David and who?
But you're saying, no, there's an openness.
I'd say there's an awful lot going on.
Climate.
Huge amounts going on, not just in the West, but within a global context. I mean, very, very quickly, there's an organisation called the Pew Forum who do a lot of the best research on religious trends worldwide. Interesting, if you look at their latest data, they're predicting the number of people who have no religion, the so-called nones, N-O-N-E-S, that's atheists, agnostics, all those guys. They're going to decline over the next kind of 20 years from 16% of the world's population to 13%. Everywhere we look, religion is growing. This includes Christianity. I mean, you think of the church in China. Over 150
Stunning.
million. Africa, 1 million Christians in 1900. Today, 450 million, projected to be 600 million by 2025. The church in the Middle East, growing, 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 and growing. Now, what about the West? Yes, things are more challenging here for some reasons, but I think because Christians have retreated from the public square. But what I would say is going on in the West is I see green shoots everywhere. So back home in the UK now, it's a different scene to where I left 6 years ago. Churches are doing innovative work. There's incredible evangelistic events happening. There's an openness. I find when you go onto university campuses in the UK, people aren't hostile. Yeah, they have questions, they have objections, but they're not just saying, oh, Christianity, I know all about that, because they often don't. Those school kids that you talked about in the 1980s, they've grown up, they've had children, and of course, while their parents knew nothing about the Christian faith, their children know even less, which means they're not rejecting it, they just don't know what it is.
They haven't been told.
We're back to a pagan world, just like the world of the first century, where the gospel grew like wildfire. And the same is true here, I would say, in Canada.
So maybe that's uncluttered, maybe that's just fresh soil.
I think it's incredibly fresh soil. I think for too long we face the problem that people think they know what Christianity is and are rejecting it. There are caricatures out there, often, sometimes sadly perpetuated by the church. We haven't always been as helpful in this as we might. But I think now a lot of those caricatures have faded away and people know nothing. Now that means we have to rethink how to communicate. You can't simply go in and quote Bible stories and assume people know what you're talking about. But again, I look at the first century world. The church grew like wildfire. It started as this tiny group of persecuted, former Jews, hiding in an upper room after the crucifixion of Jesus. Bang, day of Pentecost, missions begin, and within 300 years, the Roman Empire has gone from being the persecutor to being 60% Christian.
So why can't this happen again?
We know the gospel.
God hasn't changed?
God has not changed. The gospel hasn't changed.
Now, you are here for something that has been, 5 years in the making and become something quite significant on our university campuses.
That's right. So a year ago, RZAM, working with a lot of campus ministries and other groups, it took us 5 years, but we built some coalitions that enabled us to launch something called University Mission Weeks here in Canada. These have been known in Europe for a long time, sort of foreign really to Canadian soil. And what we do is, rather than just go and do single events on university campuses, we do a week of events. Lunch bars, open forums, events in the evening, get students heavily involved, partner with churches. And last year, for example, at University of Toronto, we saw 2,000 to 3,000 students come through those events. Many gave their lives to Christ.
And this is a coalition of all the university ministries.
Well, this year is the second year that we are doing that, and so it's hugely exciting. It's really mushroomed since last year. So we have a week of events at University of Toronto. We have a week at University of McGill, McMaster University, not far from where we're recording this. They've got a week of events. Queen's University in Kingston, doing 3 days. I believe there's something happening up in Guelph. We reckon over the next week, something like 8,000 to 10,000 students will come to a Christian event. We have a number of RZAM speakers and others, and then we're partnered with every group you can imagine. InterVarsity, Power to Change, campus churches, Wycliffe College in Toronto. And in fact, as soon as I leave recording with you here, I'm dashing to Toronto to speak on Is God Anti-Freedom? At University of Toronto, and then this evening doing a dialogue with a secular professor of philosophy from there, and we expect hundreds to come and hear the gospel. There's an openness, Moira. There's an incredible openness.
This is more good news than I can contain.
Well, that's what the gospel is, isn't it? The gospel is good news.
And you're going to keep coming back. And
That's the plan.
We haven't lost you.
Och no, to use my Scottish there. To go.
We've
I
invested you. We've invested
I love
you.
Canada, and of course,
Wonderful.
I had 2 kids when I was here, so I have 2 Canadians.
And how old are your precious children?
My 4-year-old,
Katrina?
my daughter Katrina, 4 years old. My son Christopher, 21 months. Both have Canadian passports, so you don't get rid of us
All
easily.
right, you better keep coming back. It was lovely to read. You're a landscape photographer, a mountain climber, and hiker. You're going to be visiting all those Bens. Ben Nevis, Ben Morris, all the mountains in Scotland.
Been there, done that.
You've already done it? Already?
It's a terrible joke. You missed it. Been there, done that.
Ben there. Okay. All right.
The crew got it. They're laughing in the background. There we
Last
are.
laugh's actually on me. I am so thrilled. This is just all good news.
It's been
It was
great.
a shock at first hearing, but now that you've fleshed it out, we need to be praying for you.
We'd love you to be. So, yeah, listeners can look me up on Facebook, social media, all those kind of things. And also encourage people to continue to get behind the RZIM team here in Canada. Amazing things happening.
RZIM and Solas.
And Solas.
Double barrel.
Double barrel indeed.
Dangers for the kingdom. You stay there, man.
Great talking to you,
and
Lady
come back
Laura
and give
Brown.
us the update.
I will indeed.
Wow, I hope you're excited too.